I've been married to my wife Karen, who I met in college. We have two young daughters that presently go to the Southington school system. I've been born and raised in the district. I went to Southington Public Schools, so I know the district very well. And the district, the 16th district, is Southington, Waterbury, Wilkett, and Cheshire. So part of Cheshire and part of Waterbury. So this is a great opportunity for me, serving for the last 5 terms as a member of the Southington Town Council. The interesting part is when I was elected in 2001 to Southington's Town Council, I outpolled 2 longtime incumbents. And I immediately went to work for the people of Southington, and it's been a great, rewarding experience. I've enjoyed my service on the Town Council in Southington. And in 2005, I was fortunate enough to be elected as chairman of the Town Council, which is the highest elected official in Southington. And during my tenure on the council, one of the #1 focus for me when I became chairman was to get Southington's fiscal house in order. And through working hard with other members of the council, Republican and Democrat, we adopted a very broad and comprehensive fiscal policy. And what's interesting, what's really surprising about the whole concept when we thought about having a fiscal policy, which would really be a guide for future policymakers, was that Southington never had one. So with this policy, we worked hard to get our fiscal house in order, and through the efforts of the fiscal policy, which really set parameters, it allowed policymakers to have a better understanding of what the goals should be when it comes to the rainy day or the Southington savings account. It's also important to know what our indebtedness should be in our community. It set parameters of how much you should really spend in terms of projects and investments in our community. So through that fiscal policy, which was very successful, it allowed Southington to get a double bump in its bond rating. And when you get a double bump up in this type of economy, it was very beneficial to our community. It was from a AA- to a AA+. It was our first bond rating increase in a long time in Southington. And a lot of the credit agencies alluded to the fact that Southington finally had a fiscal policy. So I was very happy that the work that we did on the fiscal policy helped us get lower interest rates on our bonds and future bonds that we will have to have in the future in our community. The other good thing, I'm really proud of my work in Southington because I concentrated on making sure that the taxpayers came first. What we did in Southington through my 4 years as chairman, when I first became chairman, the rainy day fund or savings account or contingency account, whatever you want to call it, was about $6 million. When I finished my term, 4 years, actually I was the first Democrat to ever serve 2 terms as chairman. After the 4 years was finished as chairman, our rainy day fund sat at $10 million. So it went from $6 million to $10 million in 4 years. And that wasn't easily done. It was through a lot of hard work and a lot of planning and proper ways of how to going about addressing a budget. The other important thing we did as chairman of the council, we made the investments in our elementary schools. I pushed forward the first town-wide referendum on elementary school projects since 1999. Proud to say those projects came in on budget and ahead of schedule, so I'm very proud of that accomplishment. We also had record budget surpluses every year I was chairman, so we knew it was important to put the taxpayers first when it came to the fiscal health of our community. And I also was very happy that last year, my last year as chairman of the council, we actually approved a 0% increase on our general budget, general government side of the budget. So with that, we've worked really hard. I worked really hard to make sure our fiscal health is very strong in Southington. And I think it gives me the local experience that I could bring to Hartford to really tackle the major challenges that we see in Hartford. And we all know the fiscal health of our state is in crisis. There's a lot of concerns on multiple levels of what the state's been doing. We've had too much borrowing to balance budgets, and I think those days are over with, and we have to face the reality. And I'm willing to step up to Hartford, tackle those challenges, and I think having the experience in the local level is very important when you're in Hartford, because what you see a lot of times is people that have no local experience, never been elected to like a local town council or a local board, they don't really understand the impact of what Hartford can do on municipalities. Right. So I look forward to the challenges up there. I hope this November people will get out and vote for me. I want them to get to know me better, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show so the people in Cheshire can get to know me a little better.
Excellent. It certainly sounds, without saying it again, but you certainly have a focus on fiscal responsibility, which I think is important. And it does sound like you've done some impressive things in Southington during tough economic times. Not the whole period that you served on the council, but when you talked about some of this fiscal constraint and fiscal strategy, those were some pretty tough years. So, so you're to be commended.
Well, thank you, Justin. And one of the interesting things that we did in Southington is October of 2008, right before the major problems, really from a worldwide perspective. I mean, this is the worst economic conditions since the Great Depression. In October of 2008, we moved quickly in Southington, one of the first towns to enact a containment policy. And that containment policy really mandated to our bureaucratic, our bureaucrats in town hall that, you know what, there's going to be a freeze on overtime. We're not going to pay for any non-essential government purchases. We stopped out-of-town travel. And through that containment policy, just in a very short few months, we ended up with $600,000 in savings. So there is always savings to be found in government. You just have to make sure you elect the right people to do it. And my experience in Southington, I think, will be very beneficial up in Hartford.
Okay. One other thing that I think is worthy to note, I have a sense, with my understanding of you, John, that you also are, shall I say, independent. You haven't been afraid to buck the party, if you will, is my understanding. You want to talk to our viewers a little bit about that?
Well, just this past year, I voted no on the budget, and in the Southington budget, because what we saw happen, it was almost a 4% increase in new government spending, and that's just not acceptable for me in these times that we live in. And what made it even more challenging for me how this all came about was that our largest union agreed to a freeze. But we still increased the budget at almost 4% overall overall on Board of Ed and town side. And you can't do that in these economic times. So a lot of times they'll blame labor, saying, well, labor, we have contractual obligations. We have to pay people their salaries. What we saw in Southington this year, the budget we're in right now, is that the largest union, which made up the majority of our costs on labor, took a freeze. But the town council decided to still increase spending at almost 4%. I immediately voted no. I said this was not acceptable. It really didn't take into consideration the future, because there are so many unknowns going out. And for us to increase taxes and increase the budget at the level we did this year, it upset some people in my town. Who is he to say no? Let's all play along, let's all get along, and I'll vote the same way. And I said, no, I can't vote for this. So, I'm willing to take that ability to stand up to special interests, to face the facts to these people and say, listen, there's only so much government can do. And there is a time for consolidation. Now is the time not to keep spending on the local level, because we don't know what's going to happen on the state level. Right. We don't know if our funding is going to be decreased next year. And it's very disturbing to me when the municipality I live in, which I worked so hard to keep very fiscally responsible, I saw one of a very large increase this year. So I immediately voted no.
Okay. As I understand it, and it's important to the folks in Cheshire, because we were one of the first to start with a very active open space program, but I understand that you had some experience trying to get some federal money for open space and land conservation in Southington. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that experience and what you learned through that process? Sure. And what were the ups and the downs?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because preserving and protecting land really increases your quality of life. And one of the things in Southington, we started late. It wasn't until about 2000 that Southington really took it serious to start purchasing land. The open spaces in Southington are an asset to our community. It's a draw for people to come live in Southington because in Southington we have a great park system. One of the things I was very instrumental in doing is securing federal money to expand our rails to trails, our walking and biking path. And I'm very happy to work with the congressional delegation down in Washington, which did secure federal money for us to expand that trail. So that trail is now being expanded from downtown Plantsville, the village of Plantsville, which is part of Southington, to the Cheshire line. And it's going to be, once it's completed, the entire trail right now will be about 4 miles. We still have further to go north in Southington. We'll have to go towards the Plainville line, which is a long-term goal. But these type of parks, these type of open space are essential for a healthy community. So I'm very proud of the work we did. And if I am elected to the state senate, certainly I know Cheshire's rails, the trail I actually biked on it, which goes south, is a great asset. It's like you're out in the wilderness in areas.
Absolutely.
And it's really healthy to get out and exercise or walk, but it's also very peaceful when you can see in Southington we have the trail across rivers and stuff. It's great to see nature.
Sure.
It's great to see birds.
Sure.
And that's important for a community also. So I hope if I am successful this November that we can overcome the hurdles that are right now in Cheshire in terms of expanding the trail north to the Southington border, because it will be really a regional asset. Absolutely. To have that trail connect all the way down
to Haven.
That's right.
And up.
Southington, through the efforts of the members of the town council, and when I was leader of the council, we had a priority to make sure we got that funding. And very happy. It's moving along very nicely, and it's being in the process of being paved now, and it will be an official opening probably next spring. But it's a great asset, and I'm very happy about it.
With the few minutes we have left, maybe you can cover just briefly. You had said you had some interest and some thoughts in the whole energy and the cost of electricity. What might your thoughts be there in terms of what you might do at the legislature?
Sure.
If elected.
Well, what we see happening with our electrical rates, they're one of the highest in the country, and that it really is a burden to our small businesses, to any of our businesses here in Connecticut. So we have to have a comprehensive plan of how are you going to increase competition, lower rates, and really help out businesses here in Connecticut. So I think with a really focused attention about how can we increase competition, but how can we also protect the industries that are already here in Connecticut, the electrical companies like Northeast Utilities, which is employ a lot of Connecticut employees, so a lot of Connecticut people. So it's important that we work with major employers here in Connecticut like Northeast Utilities and say, listen, we have to work with you. How do you get these rates down? How can we create a healthy environment for you, for your company to succeed? But it's also about better competition. It's also it's unrealistic to think people in Connecticut are paying such a higher rate of electricity than if you live in Rhode Island or if you live, in Maryland. That is just not acceptable, and it has to be a top priority for not only for Connecticut's economy, but for Connecticut's businesses and residential payers, because people are paying $250, $300 a month for an electric bill. It really becomes a huge burden on our families here in Connecticut.
Yeah, it is quite a burden. So with the short time we have left, maybe just tell our viewers what's the #1 challenge you see and what will you do about it in Hartford, and maybe some points about why they should vote for you.
Well, first of all, the #1 challenge definitely is the budget. The Connecticut state budget is possibly facing $3 billion in deficit. It's a major problem. And I outlined what I've done in Southington on a smaller scale, but it's important to elect people that have the experience in addressing budgets, addressing how can you address these huge budget deficits. The problem is that you're going to have to cut. There's going to have to be sacrifices. Immediate consolidation of state agencies in Hartford. There has to be a new way, a new approach, new people. And I will be a new person if I'm elected. I've never been elected to the legislature, and I think I can bring a different perspective than maybe what's already, that has been there. People are leaving. There's going to be a new governor. There's going to be great opportunities to really address the budget issue. That is the #1 priority because we can't continue what we're doing today. But I want people to get to know me. They can go onto my website, johnberryforsenate.com. I'm willing to answer any emails, answer your calls. I want people to get to know me. I've been elected many years in Southington. They know me in Southington, but I want people in Cheshire also to get to know me and see what my record is.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
John, thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Justin, very much. I
Thanks to our
appreciate it.
viewers.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
I appreciate it.